Hey guys, you're welcome back to my channel. In this tutorial, we'll be drafting a Dartless conical corset. It will have a cup and a zipper. So to draft it, I am getting an horizontal line at the top edge of my drafting paper, and that's for my shoulder line. Then I'll go to the mid front, okay, and I'll place 3 inches width and 3 inches depth for my basic neckline. Using the cuff part of my pattern master, I'm connecting that neck depth to the neck width. I'll go back to my shoulder line and I'll place half of my shoulder measurement. At that point, I'm going down with 1 inch and I'll connect it to meet my neck width, and that will be my shoulder slope. Then to my shoulder slope again, I'm placing half of my shoulder measurement again, and I'll mark that point and connect my shoulder slope to that 8 inches downward. At that point of 8 inches, I'm drawing an horizontal line which will serve as the chest line. To create my arm cuff, I'll measure a quarter of my bust measurement. I'm using bust 43. A quarter of that is 10 3/4 inches, okay, and I'll measure that line I had from my shoulder slope, get the midpoint of it, and at the midpoint I'll go inwards with ½ inch, and then I'm connecting it from my shoulder slope to meet that quarter of my bust measurement. Going back to my shoulder line, I want to take my vertical measurement now. So I'll measure from my shoulder line. I'll get the bust point of 10.5 inches. And the front half length is 18 inches. Now to know this, you have to tilt to one side of your body and you measure the part that goes deep. So for my blouse length, I will be measuring 9 inches from the true waistline. Okay, I'll measure 9 inches downwards. That will be for the hip line. Now at that point, that's where we have the fullness of the hip circumference. Okay, so I'm getting that point. I don't want to measure the hip measurement on my blouse line because somehow it gets bigger at that point. That's not the true hip line, okay, so I'm gonna have excess. That's why I'm going down with 9 inches. So after marking that, I'm simply drawing out the lines that I have marked. So to label this, we already have the chest line. I'll label bust point, waistline, and hip line. I'll place the same measurement I have on my chest line on the bust point, and I'll place a quarter of the waist measurement. I'm working with waist measurement 35, but I need to snatch it a little because I'm using zipper. I just snatch it with 2 inches. So now I have 33 for the waist circumference, and I place a quarter of that on the waist circumference. On my hip line, I place a quarter of my hip circumference, and then I am connecting the dots that I have on my chest line bust point to the waistline, and I'll connect the waistline to the hip line. So we already have the basic bodies all drafted. So to make the corset, I'll mark the half of my nipple to nipple measurement. The nipple to nipple measurement is 8 inches. Dividing that by 2 is 4 inches. So I'm just placing this will be as a guide because we'll be using a ready-made cup for this. Okay, so I want it to be as beginners friendly as possible. Now on my channel I have a dartless bodice as well that we drafted, dividing the measurement by 2. Okay, that's a bit advanced, but this one I want it to be very basic. So I marked my under bust. Like I said, this will be a guide. and I'll label that under bust. So bringing the cup I have, now usually I like to make it 2 inches bigger than what I already have. I'm trying to show us the difference between the push up and the ordinary bra cup. Okay, so just so I'll make it a push up because the push up I have there is smaller, so I'll be using this regular cup. And to make it push up, I'm measuring 1/2 inch from the midpoint of this cup, and I'll measure 2.5 inches upward. So I'll just use a ruler. You can make it straight. You can use the curved part of your ruler. And then I'll connect that point, that 2.5 inches I marked, to the 1/2 inch. So I'll take it to the machine and sew that part. Sewing that part like this is what we have. So give it some depth more than when it was before. So I'll just trim out the excess that I have there so it won't give any bulge, or discomfort when and the client is wearing it. So at this point, I can now use it as my cup. But before I do that, I'll extend the chest line and then the nipple to nipple line. And on my chest line, I am going inwards with 1/2 inch. At that point, I'm going down with 1 inch. Now at the 1 inch, I mark downwards. Okay, that means I'm going inwards with 1/2 inch at 1 inch below the chest point. So placing the bra cup, you have to make sure that you're not spreading it. Okay, just hold it in such a way that it maintains the cup part. You won't want your cup to be flat. All right, so align the midpoint to the 1/2 inch and 1 inch I took downwards. I'm simply using a pin at this point to just trace out the shape of the bra cup that I have. And we have the outline. So I'll use a marker to make it visible for us all to see. So after outlining this, okay, like I said, we are taking 1/2 inch, okay, from the center front, and then I'm connecting it to the bust point. All right, so that's the shape of our cup, and I'll be making use of this part as the front yoke. For my blouse length, like I said, I don't want to place exactly what I have as my hip circumference measurement on my blouse length. I gave my reasons before. So I'm measuring 23 inches for the blouse length. So that's like 5 inches downwards from the waistline. So I'm measuring that as my blouse length. I'll draw the point I marked horizontally, and that is for the blouse length. So at the far edge there, I'm going up with 1 inch. At that point, I'll go out diagonally with 1.5 inches. You can make it 2 inches or more. It depends on how pronounced you want your conical part to be. So I just want it make it minimal. So what I marked as 1.5 inches, I'm connecting it to meet the waistline. You can notice that it's very sharp around the waistline, but it's fine because that's exactly the fit that we need. So for the conical part, you can shape it anyhow you want it. Okay, so this is me trying to get out the shape that I have, first of all with a biro. If you can just do freehand, you can do it, but I noticed that I couldn't really do it, so I had to bring in my pattern master and use the curve part to just give the shape that I want. I haven't gotten the shape that I want. I'll simply use my marker to make it visible. Okay, so for this shaping, you can make it below the blouse length, but I just want to work with the blouse length. I don't want it longer than this, because usually for a corset you don't need to make it more than 22 inches to give you comfort when you're sitting. Okay, so now I'm working with the blouse length and I've gotten the shape that I want, and I'll cut this out using my scissors. And with this, I have the front panel. So now I'll simply place it on a fresh paper to get my back. Okay, now I like to do this because I usually like the back bodice to be 1 inch higher at the shoulder and ½ inch wider at the arm curve. Now because I want to use a zipper, I am just marking out 1 inch from the back center line. Okay, so I will have a zipper allowance. So I'll connect the dot and then bring in the front bodice, simply placing it like so, because I'm cutting exactly what I have on the front bodice on the back bodice, just that I want to make it 1 inch higher at the shoulder line and ½ inch wider at the arm curve. So I'll tape this down or use my pins. I'll just pin it down and make sure everywhere is flat. I'm done pinning, so I'll measure the 1 inch at the shoulder line. I'm measuring that 1 inch following the shape that I already have. Remember, we had already observed our shoulder slope. So I'm taking 1 inch following that shape now. So it will be the same thing. And at my arm curve, I'll get the midpoint of the chest line and I'll use the curve ruler to first of all connect that half to the shoulder slope, the shoulder slope that I have for the back bodies, and I'll connect that ½ inch to meet the bust measurement, the 1/4 of my bust measurement. And then I'll mark my back half length. Now remember, the back half length, you measure it from the front half length. Okay, I'm measuring 16 inches. I'll mark that. For the front bodies, I used 18 inches. For the back is 16 inches. So the back half length is usually 2 inches and lesser than the front bodies. So I'm cutting this out. For my back bodies now, I'm measuring half of the nipple to nipple measurement. We are not observing any dot whatsoever. I'm simply gonna use this as a guide, especially when I want to shape the back yoke. So connecting the line that I marked for the nipple to nipple line, I will observe that back indentation of 1 inch. If you've been on my channel, you know that I always like to measure this. So I'll slide that 1 inch I measured from the back center line all the way to somewhere around the chest line. But you don't need to slant it so much that it will affect your bust measurement. So I'll slant it again to meet the hem, and I'll be observing 1 inch. That becomes our new back center line. So I'll observe 1 inch again for the zipper allowance, following that new shape, and then connect the dots. So I'll cut this out, and then for our yoke, I'm measuring what I have on the front body, so it will be the same thing. I have 1.5 inches there, so I'll mark 1.5 inches. So that's how the yoke for the back will start. I'll draw it out horizontally. From that yoke line, I'm going upward with 2 inches, and I'll connect it, that 2 inches, I'll connect it all the way to meet the nipple to the nipple line that I draw out. Remember, I said it's just for a guide. This is why I draw that line. So to contour our yoke so it do not gape, I'm observing ½ inch like so. For our neck width, I'm using 3 inches width and 2 inches depth. I'll connect the neck width to meet the neck depth like so, and I draw it all the way to the zipper allowance. So with this, we are done with the yoke. Okay, notice how I contoured it. All right, and then I'm cutting this out. So for the front, there's not much manipulation. I'm simply just cutting what I already have. The front lower part is in one piece, and of course the yoke is in one piece. We do not have so much pieces for this particular corset. So I'm done with the back and the front yoke. So we'll move over to cut it on the fabric. When I cut the fabric before adding the interface, I notice sometimes I might lose the shape. So of course it might look like a waste for you, but it saves me a whole lot of issues of having reshape and cut again. Because most times some fabric, when it's exposed to heat, they can either expand or shrink. So I prefer to add the interface first before I cut it on the fabric. So cutting on the fabric, I have added all the seam allowance that I need. I will upload the part 2 of this tutorial, and that will be the sewing part. There are a lot of technicalities that I will expose in the next tutorial. So I like that you subscribe and turn on your notification button so you'll be the first to know when I upload. So thank you so much for watching. I want to appreciate all my subscribers for always being here. And for my newbies, please subscribe. Please subscribe so we'll do the sewing tutorial together. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in my next video.